It was a shooting at a Maryland gas station. Was the shooter justified? We got some thoughts. Stay tuned. This is attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. partners at the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm, here today to talk about a pretty interesting one. How you doing today, Marc?
Fantastic, man. I'm excited about this one, and I'm sporting my new red jacket today.
You look great. I was just telling you before we started recording that I was jealous of your awesome jacket.
Yeah, it's a new jacket. My wife talked me into getting a red jacket, so first time I've ever worn it.
Snazzy.
I'm excited. I was excited to wear it to the firm today.
I'm glad you busted it out for this legal analysis video.
It seemed like the proper thing to do.
You want to set this one up?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know a lot about this, and it seems like there's some controversy about exactly what the facts are. But as best we can tell, the incident at this gas station is as follows. In the silver, looks like Toyota, it appears there is a male in the passenger seat. And either that person or his girlfriend, or let's say his female friend, who's the person standing outside with looks like the face mask on, one of those two people goes into the convenience store there at the gas station, and the allegation is that one of them, or both of them maybe, was offering to sell some marijuana to maybe a minor. And the person who is ultimately shot in this case is upset about that. And so he comes over and decides he wants to confront the person in the vehicle. It's not real. There's a lot we don't know about this. So maybe what is best to do is just play the video, and then we can chat about it, and we can try to sketch together what the facts are. But I think this is going to be a to-be-continued story.
Sounds good.
Wow. Short video, but ugly scene.
And a lot going on legally there, too. So she's getting into the vehicle. She's already got a male in her passenger seat. The guy approaches very aggressively. It sounds like he may be using some profanity, but he's definitely approaching pretty aggressively. And then he opens her door. That's a scary moment.
Yeah.
We've had clients in that situation before, both in criminal defense situations and in victims advocacy cases. And anybody will tell you, if you've never been in your car and had a stranger, an aggressive and hostile stranger, reach down and open your closed door, that's a scary moment.
Yeah. So clearly this guy who ultimately is shot, there's no question, but he's the aggressor here, right? I mean, he walks over, he opens the door. He's certainly not defending himself here, right? He walks over there, he opens the door. He's hostile. Sounds like he's yelling, maybe something about selling marijuana, I don't know. Gets into some kind of a dispute, and then it looks like he hauls off with a closed fist and punches this woman right in the face.
Right.
This is clearly an assault, at least an assault, and likely an aggravated assault as well. Could even be more than that.
Mm-hmm. And to be clear, no matter what they did inside of that gas station, even if they were actively trying to sell marijuana to minors, even if true, doesn't in any way, shape, or form legally justify this kind of a confrontation. If he wanted to be a good Samaritan, maybe he takes the license plate, calls the cops on it, they roll back the tapes in the convenience store and make a police report, but you don't get to go and do something like this.
Yeah, so the first part of this is actually pretty easy, all right? This guy's the aggressor. He comes over there. He punches her in the face. She's the victim. There's no question about that. That's maybe part A of this very short video. But then she closes the door and she drives away.
Mm-hmm.
That incident is essentially over at that moment. She has driven away. And I think it's also important to note that this is happening in Maryland. And Maryland is one of that minority of states that has a duty to retreat. And so essentially what this is before you use or threaten deadly physical force, you have a duty to try to leave if you can in complete safety. Now, there's an exception to this in all of the duty to retreat states. We call this the castle doctrine. It comes from the notion that your home is your castle, right? How could that's your last place to retreat to. And so even in the duty to retreat states, You never have to retreat if you're in your home. Interesting little side note, you don't have to be the owner of the house. It could be somebody just who lives there. Could even be an overnight guest. You don't have to retreat from your home. Some states that have a duty to retreat extend that to a workplace as well. So they'll say you have a duty to retreat unless you're at home or you're at your workplace. And then some states further extend it and say if you're in your vehicle, you don't have a duty to retreat. Maryland is one of those states that has not extended the duty to retreat to a vehicle. So the duty to retreat is in play here. She stops the car and she opens the door. I don't know why she does that. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to analyze this case without that information, right? Because ultimately, this guy again approaches and she then shoots this guy. She uses deadly physical force. There's no question about that. And then she drives away. What was in her mind at the time? And it's not clear if she shot or if there was somebody in the passenger seat, if he shot. One of the two of them shoots this guy, and then she drives away. And there's a lot to analyze here, but we really don't have the facts, right? Assuming they find her and she gets charged with either an ag assault or maybe an attempted murder, or if this guy dies, then maybe a murder, maybe a second or even a first. I'd want to talk to her, right? We'd get her into the office and would sit her down and say, help us understand what was going on. You were able to drive away. Why didn't you just keep driving? Right. I can only speculate about what some of the reasons might be. One that sort of pops into my head is she might say, well, I was just punched in the face. I couldn't safely drive, and that's why I stopped my car.
Maybe she had blurry vision or something at that point.
Yeah, okay, that would make sense. Why'd you then open the door? Maybe I thought I was trying to get some help. I thought the guy was gone or something like that. Okay, that would make some sense. But then there he is again, and he had just punched me in the face. And the question again, who shot here? And so what interesting question that pops into my head, and always has popped into my head, I guess. We don't deal with this very often because we're in Arizona, and also the majority of states do not have a duty to retreat. But the question of how that duty to retreat applies when someone is using deadly physical force to protect a third party, right? So imagine the facts are here that we're dealing with the boyfriend or the male friend who's in the passenger seat. And what he says when asked, why did you fire the firearm at this guy? Well, because I saw what he just did. And I thought she was at risk of an imminent, serious physical injury or death. Arguably, this guy's pretty big. She looked pretty small. That all makes sense. How does the duty to retreat apply here, right? You have a duty to retreat, but he's defending a third party. He could retreat, but that doesn't protect the third party. So it's not clear to me exactly. And I did a little bit of search today in Maryland in preparation for this video to see if I could find any cases that dealt with how the duty to retreat in Maryland applies when the person using or threatening deadly physical force is using it to defend a third party. And I couldn't find anything. That'd be a very interesting issue to research and to even argue if the facts turn out that way, and this case goes to trial. Boy, that'd be a fun issue.
Yeah, maybe we can unpack a little bit why this is such a head scratcher from a legal perspective. So what the duty to retreat says is that before you can use deadly physical force, you have to try to retreat, and if you're able to retreat in complete safety, then and only then can you use deadly physical force in a self-defense context.
Yeah, if you can't retreat in complete safety, then you're now authorized to deal with that imminent threat of death or serious physical injury.
But you put this beside the defense of a third party legal theory, which is that basically you're allowed to use as much force as the person who you're protecting was legally allowed to use, right? So the idea here is that you basically stand in their shoes. Okay. If you were in their position and you were that person facing the force that they were threatening, how much reasonable amount of force would be necessary to repel that threat? So the key there is that they were legally allowed to use, that the person you're protecting was legally allowed to use. And so a prosecutor might try to unravel the defense of a third party if it was the passenger who shot and killed this guy. The prosecutor might try to undo that defense here by saying, well, hold on, the lady wasn't legally allowed to use it because she could have still retreated in complete safety.
Yeah, to which you could respond that, well, maybe that's true. But I was mistaken about the facts. I thought she couldn't retreat in complete safety because she didn't appear to me to be able to drive at that point, and there was nowhere for her to go. So there's a lot of interesting legal questions here that it would be fun to dig into in this case, if indeed those are the facts. And we don't know exactly what the facts are. I think it's also important to note that, she drove away. And prosecutors like to use this as they say, consciousness of guilt. There's a consciousness of guilt instruction that a jury would be given that says, hey, if somebody flees the scene, you can, if you choose to, infer that the person left because they knew they were guilty of something. Now, there could be other reasons, right? She might say, no, I needed medical attention. My nose was just broken or something else was going on. Or
I was scared the guy had a gun.
Yeah.
And might start shooting at the car.
Right. Or I was not thinking clearly. The guy just smacked me in the face. And so there can be other reasons beside consciousness of guilt. On the other hand, you could stop after you've gotten further down the road and call 911 and say, hey, I was just attacked by this guy. Here's what happened. So I also think it's possible that somebody could say, and I'm not sure I'm persuaded by this argument, but somebody could say, look, you brought a firearm to a fist fight. And yeah, he's bigger, but it still was just a fist fight, and you discharged a firearm, and that was excessive force to repel that attack. So that's going to always be an argument here when you got somebody with fists and the other person's got a firearm and you've discharged several rounds. I think it's important to note that this person wasn't a very good shot. You can see they shot out the window in the red car there. Keep in mind, if you recklessly injure or kill another person, even if you're acting in self-defense, you're going to be responsible for where those rounds land. And so if someone had been hit in that red car...
Well, you saw that girl walking in front of the car at the time that those rounds were discharged. She was definitely in the danger zone there. That could have been really, really bad.
Yeah. Also, another point here that probably could have avoided this whole situation, lock your damn door. When you get in your car and you know there's trouble coming, lock the door. I mean, if the door had been locked, my guess is this guy, he's upset and he's yelling and he's screaming and maybe he's giving you the finger, but he can't get in the car. You just drive away and that's the end of the incident. And again, this crosses a little bit from the legal analysis, which is what we do, to more of a tactical analysis. But you really got to keep your head in the game, right? And you got to use your brain and think rationally and say, how can I avoid this situation? I really got to lock my door. Also, there are other uses of force that maybe you're in between getting in a fist fight and a firearm, pepper spray, a taser, something like that, that if that was available, probably is a better choice here than a firearm. Maybe even displaying the firearm would have been enough here, and you didn't have to actually discharge a bunch of rounds. So all of this stuff is going to be, if they ever find the person here and they bring charges and this thing goes to trial, all of this will be interesting legal analysis here. So I guess we can't really go much further with this because we don't know how the facts are going to shake out.
Yeah, I'm glad that we talked about a bunch of different hypotheticals because this one is definitely going to turn on our clients and the passengers' version of events and what was going on in their head. There's so many different defenses here. But, I think a prosecutor might try to get premeditation out of the conduct of the driver here. She starts and then stops, opens door, and either she or passenger shoots. Why would you do that unless you were planning on enacting revenge for what he just did to you? Might be the theory of the case for the state.
And if that's what's in their head, they're going to be in a world of hurt here because, certainly you were gone at that point, right? You're in a car. This guy's on foot. You were out of there. Why stop and open the door? So we don't know the answers to those questions. Those are the fun things you get to hear about in attorney-client meetings on these kinds of cases.
Absolutely. Yeah, this would be a really interesting one, and hopefully nobody involved violated rule number 1, which is just shut your mouth. And this is why you just shut your mouth, is because we as attorneys know exactly the buffet of defenses that we have to choose from, and we want to be able to take a look at the evidence and sit down with a client in privileged communication and determine what the best defense is in the case. And when you talk to the cops, you can inadvertently close off doors to future defenses. So I don't know how this one's going to shake out, but maybe we'll do a part 2 on this video.
Yeah, this is another great example of just regulate your conduct, your emotional conduct, right? You don't have to get upset and yell and scream. And here's this guy walking across the gas station punching some woman in the face because he's upset about something. And look how this resulted for him. Any way you look at it, I'm sure he didn't want to be shot, right? He could have just called the police instead of being a vigilante. Maybe he had righteous anger. He might have been in the right at that point. But when you open somebody's car door and punch him in the face, you kind of lost your mind. You let anger run the show. You got to keep your wits about you at all times.
Yeah, part of being a vigilante is that you're putting yourself in harm's way, right?
Yeah.
The idea is that if you're trying to enact a citizen's arrest or do something righteous because you think that you're legally justified, part of the fact that makes these vigilantes in cases that turn out well for them, part of the thing that makes them heroes is that they put themselves in harm's way. And, you know, we've been doing a lot of videos involving, like I think of road rage videos we've recently done. I know Emma and I recently did one that involved somebody angry walking up to a car. You're putting yourself in harm's way for sure. When you're approaching somebody's vehicle like that. And, you know, a lot of states, not necessarily Maryland, but a lot of more gun-friendly jurisdictions extend drivers of occupied vehicles a heck of a lot of protection when it comes to displaying and using deadly physical force. Most jurisdictions have actually extended the protections that you get in your home to your vehicle in terms of what type of deadly physical force you can use. And, you know, here in Arizona, for example, they say, oh, if somebody's trying to enter an occupied vehicle, it doesn't even matter at that point that they just have fists and don't have a weapon. They are presumed to be presenting a serious physical injury, a deadly physical force, and so you can respond accordingly.
Take a breath, people. Take a breath. I'm going to quote Seneca here. Seneca says, anger is temporary insanity. You got to short-circuit anger. When you feel yourself getting angry, take a breath, take a step back and say, is this worth dying for? I'm still okay. I live in a first world country. This is a first world problem. Move on.
Yeah. We'll do some research on some of these fun issues, and if we find anything else to talk about here, we'll come back to this one. But there's a lot to learn practically from this video, so I'm glad we talked about it. All right, everybody, go and check out attorneysonretainer.us to learn about our self-defense program and what it can do for you. Also, check out attorneysforfreedom.com to learn all about our law firm and how we represent people. Also, guys, I wanted to remind you, we've got our first annual AOR conference coming up in November. That's going to be in Arizona, November 8th through the 10th. It's going to be awesome speeches from the lawyers, all kinds of information that we're going to be giving our clients. There's going to be workshops, there's going to be breakouts, there's even going to be a range day and a cocktail hour and all kinds of fun stuff. You can come and tour our law firm. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description. And of course, it is free for Attorneys on Retainer clients. So if you haven't signed up yet, make sure to do so. Also, if you like this video, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe, leave us a comment down below, and share it with a friend. Until next time, this has been Attorney Andy Marcantel and Attorney Marc J. Victor. Peace.